सभी सभी कार्यकर्ताओं के लिए भोजन की व्यवस्था यहाँ पे है।
Well, that is the victory speech. Prime Minister Modi addressing party workers and party leaders at the BJP headquarters, and of course addressing the country, taking the party workers and the country through the rationale behind this mandate, and of course making it clear that this is a mandate for change. This is a mandate for the kind of policies that this government has brought in the first term, and that they intend to take it forward also as they gear up for term number 2. Well, you'll continue to see those visuals playing out on your screens as the Prime Minister probably goes back in to meet with BJP party leaders. Of course, BJP President Amit Shah making it very clear that his target was 50% vote share, and what a staggering jump it has been for the BJP. That is how that seat conversion has happened, because across 17 states, if I heard him correctly, they've been able to achieve that number of 50% in terms of vote share. The BJP, remember, was at a 31% vote share in 2014. Well, we're keeping the conversations going here on CNBC TV 18, and let's go straight across to NR Narayana, the founder of Catamaran Ventures. He joins us here on the election verdict from Bengaluru. Mr. Murthy, thanks very much for joining us, sir, and apologies for keeping you waiting. We had the Prime Minister speaking, but let me start by asking you what you make of this mandate. It's not just a decisive victory and a decisive win, it's better than the 2014 performance. What will this mean, not just for the country's politics, but also for the country's economics?
Well, first of all, congratulations to Shri Modi ji on this stupendous victory. He has done a brilliant job, absolutely no doubt about it. What this also means is that there will be continuity of several economic initiatives that he started, like Make in India, and then Startup India, then reforms in alternate investment funds, reforms in Swachh Bharat, which of course is more social. I think the important thing is that with even a bigger majority in the parliament, I have no doubt at all that he will bring even greater vigor and greater speed to various things that he has taken up. But the most important thing for any democracy like ours is to ensure that every one of the 1.35 billion Indians has confidence and hope that his or her future is going to be better as we move forward. And I do believe that there is an opportunity here for this government in its second term to work towards that extraordinary goal.
Mr. Murthy, you pointed out that the government must focus on a much more inclusive economic agenda, and that's what the Prime Minister alluded to as well. So, when we talk about further tax simplification, whether it's on the direct taxes side or the indirect taxes side, we talk about some reflationary policies, especially to get the agriculture sector moving back again. Outside of those, what is it that you would like to see specifically being addressed? Any big ideas that you believe that could be taken forward with this kind of decisive mandate and political capital?
No, I think the most important thing right now is creation of jobs in large numbers. Now, what that means is we have to attract foreign companies to come and create opportunities in large numbers for not so well educated Indians in various fields, like China has done in the past, like Vietnam is doing today. In other words, the focus has to be on creating jobs for the not so well educated, because my own industry creates jobs for reasonably well educated Indians. But that's not sufficient. We have to create jobs for not so well educated Indians. That is where low-tech manufacturing becomes extremely important. That is where improving agricultural productivity becomes important. That's where infrastructure becomes important.
Mr. Murthy, one of the comments that the Prime Minister made, that this election, in a sense, puts an end to the traditional way of looking at politics in India. He said the politics of vote banks, the politics of caste and caste consolidation. He believes that this election puts an end to that kind of political thinking and that kind of political approach. This mandates, outside of what it will do for the economy and the economic agenda over the next 5 years, from the political point of view and the political landscape, what do you believe this mandate signals for India?
Well, I am, as you know, Shireen, totally apolitical. For me, what matters is any government that brings smile onto the face of the poorest or the poor, any government that increases opportunities for every one of the 1.35 billion Indians, any government that enhances our status in our ranking in public health, in nutrition, in basic education, etc. In other words, I am much more focused on common good, because these are the areas where India has been traditionally weak, and here is an opportunity with such a strong government to gain a few points or a few ranks above where we have been and make life better for the poorest of the poor.
Mr. Murthy, one of the issues that we've traditionally seen in India is this distrust between government and the private sector. Now, given the mandate that the government enjoys and the fact that they want to move on the ease of doing business and so on and so forth even further and build more momentum on that, what do you believe we could see by way of new ways of collaborating between government and industry? What could signal perhaps an even bigger shift in that relationship?
Well, I hope there will be several highly competent, well-intentioned technocrats who will perhaps have a place at the highest levels in the government. That is required. People who are engaged, people who are full of energy, full of enthusiasm. I think that's a good idea, because at this point of time in the history of our country, we need every Indian to be enthused about progress. And that's where I think enlisting the support of highly educated, globally minded, modern, Indian professionals in adding value to the government becomes very important. But it's very, very important that these are youngish people in their 40s and 50s, people who can indeed who have tremendous energy and enthusiasm. I think that's how the two sectors, the government sector and the private sector, can come together with a unified objective of making this country so much better for every one of the 1.35 billion Indians.
Before I let you go, Mr. Murthy, you spoke about how India should be open to foreign businesses creating jobs here. You also spoke about how we should prioritize low-tech industries so that we can give the semi-literate also high productive jobs. But, if I could ask you in terms of the regulatory environment, and we've seen some back and forth, for instance, on data localization and e-commerce regulations, etc. What is it that you would like to see as we move forward to encourage more foreign direct investment as well as more domestic capital into some of the new age sectors?
My personal view is the job is pretty easy and straightforward, and that is we list out what the 5 most advanced countries in the world have done in each of the areas that you pointed out, and then take them as our ultimate objective and quickly move towards those, so that if we can say that we will be in the top 5 in terms of ease of doing business, in terms of modern technology, in terms of inclusive economics, in terms of public health, in terms of basic education, in terms of nutrition, in terms of shelter, in terms of infrastructure, then I believe it becomes a very simple thing. So I would say that let's look at the top 5 countries that lead in each of these areas and then see what they have done to get there, and let's start doing it. That's the way I would go about.
Okay. All right, Mr. Murthy, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. The founder of Infosys, NR Narayana here on the historic mandate that has come the way of the BJP and the NDA and what that means for India going forward. Also with us, Mohandas Pai, Chairman of Manipal Global Education, and Anvita Basu, Asia Analyst at the Economist Intelligence Unit. Thanks very much for joining us, Mr. Pai. Big smile on your face, I can see. You know, I mean, you were clearly expecting this, but were you expecting this kind of a mandate, Mr. Pai?
Shireen, I was not expecting this kind of a mandate. It exceeded my expectation. The voting percentage has gone up by 9%, but I expected Modi to win. But let me tell you one thing, after what Murthy said. You know, no prime minister in India has done as much for the poor in 5 years as Narendra Modi has done. Look at all the data: housing, water, power, the stoves, look at the roads, education, look at health, look at everything else. Modi has ensured that every Indian will have the necessities of life. And I think that's very important to make sure, because we have been deprived. Now the next 5 years will make sure every Indian improves the quality of life, the quality of jobs go up, etc. I think it's a remarkable performance, and the Indian citizens have come up to support him for his hard work, for all the great things that he's done for this country. GDP has gone up by 76 lakh crores. The inflation is low. We have GST. Many of the hard decisions have been taken. Now I think the benefits of all that will come. So I think they voted for continuity. They voted for stability. They voted for a great prime minister to take this country forward. I think he's very happy.
Well, yes, we can see that. It's very, very clear, but it's beaten your expectations as well. But Mr. Pai, since you said that, you know, this is a vote for continuity, it's a vote for stability, and you expect that in the second term, the government will further build on some of the initiatives that they took forward in term 1. Specifically, what would be the areas of priority that you would like to see being taken forward?
Well, apart from infrastructure and all the things we've done, I've got about 4 priorities. The first priority, Shireen, is to restore the rule of law and justice to our people. We only have 18 judges per million population. Cases take 10-20 years. Some poor Muslim boys were let off after 20 years under Tada because there was no proof of what they did. You cannot have injustice to people. We must make our courts work. We need to enhance capacity to 50 judges per million population. Economic matters go to court, they get stuck for years because of states and all this. So we have to restore the rule of law, restore our judicial system to be the #1 priority. The second priority is to make sure that labor-intensive jobs come to India, labor-intensive industries come to India, change the policies to incentivize jobs, not capital. For too long, we incentivize capital. We have got golden plating of all kind of assets and all the kind of things. So I think we have to make sure jobs come. We are producing 1 crore jobs a year, but the fact is the jobs are paid poorly because of certain reasons. We have to do that. And the third thing which you have to do, which is very, very important, is to make sure that the quality of infrastructure all over the country goes up and the supply chain costs come down from 14% of GDP to 8% to make India more competitive. I think that's very important because supply chain differentiates good countries and countries which are not successful. Next is we must invest in research and development or in higher education. Create a 5,000 crore non-lapsable fund to fund public research from all universities on a competitive basis so that over 5 years we spend 25,000 crores. And lastly, promote entrepreneurship in a big way. Startup India has worked reasonably well. Now you must accelerate. So by 2025, we'll have 150 unicorns. We'll create 3.5 million jobs. We'll have 100,000 startups. Ease of business goes up. Our heroes will be these new age entrepreneurs, not the cronies of the old economy, not these corrupt, politicians, anybody else. So we'll have genuine heroes like you have been doing for 15 years. That should be set up. These are the things. And I'm sure Modi knows about it. I think in the next 100 days, he'll announce all these things. And I think we'll see a great leap forward. Now he's come back with greater number of seats. I'm sure he'll take very bold steps. But let us not expect public sector to be sold off. Let us not expect some things for which there is no political consensus. Let's be reasonable and let's take it forward.
I just want to make one limited correction. Our startup show turns 18. So 15 was a couple of years ago. We turned 18. Young Turks turns 18. So yes. Yes. Let me bring in Gopal Krishna. Let me bring in Gopal Krishna. Thank you, sir. Gopal Krishna Agarwal, spokesperson of the BJP, also of the member of the Economic Cell, heads the Economic Cell. Gopal, you've also got a big smile on your face today. Congratulations from all of us here to start with. That was Mohan Das Pai with his list of things that you need to prioritize and focus on. And I've crowdsourced a long list from other corporates and market makers that we've been speaking to as well. But, to the last point that was made there by Mr. Pai, that let's be reasonable. Let's not think about selling off public sector assets and so on and so forth. Is that an unreasonable expectation that, privatization, strategic disinvestment is not going to be a priority? Because that's clearly what the market is betting on in term 2.
No, I don't think the disinvestment and strategic sales was always on the card. It is just that we need a right PSUs to be sold and we need a right buyer. Every time the government had been one of this agenda in 2014, Mr. Modi had said the government has no business to be in business. Therefore, we do want to get out of some of the PSUs and areas which are not a priority for the economy or the government. That's one issue. But ultimately, it's the valuation, what you can get and what you are able to offer. We are going to see mergers, acquisitions in the financial sector, banking sectors. Sale of disinvestment is also a
so
resource
more
generation
public
mechanism.
sector banking
Ultimately,
consolidation?
If you go into the history, how it happened in Air India. Yeah, definitely. This has been said
but more public sector
specifically,
bank consolidation?
Bank of Baroda, Dena Bank and Vijay Bank successfully being. Yes, definitely. This is one of the agenda that we have said that we don't need 27 public sector banks and they are competing among themselves and there is a lot of overlap of human resources and other infrastructure, administrative cost, etc. So consolidation is one way that we think that the weak banks can be recovered. This is one thing, the merger of banks and consolidation, and even some of the banks can be sold to the private sector also if there is a good valuation coming out of those scheduled banks. And
so you're open to privatization as well? Privatization of public sector banks is a possibility as well. It's a consideration.
No, offloading of shares is government doesn't think that privatization up to a level of 50% is the sale. It's a privatized. Any sale of shares up to 50% is not. It's always an open agenda for the government. Ultimately, government has to focus, as Prime Minister has told today also, government has to focus on delivery mechanism, bringing people above the poverty level. Lot of population in our country is below poverty level and we have to bring down the absolute poverty level to less than double digit as has been said in our manifesto. That's an important area, manufacturing sector requires.
Okay, let me ask you very specific questions, Gopal, and we will of course see perhaps some of this being taken forward in the budget, etc. But a new direct tax code, the report is ready. It's awaiting the government's nod. It was waiting for the elections to get over. Is that a priority, a new direct tax code?
No, we have not said that we want to come out with a new direct tax code. It was earlier, it was on the card of the UPA government, and we that time did not support that. But we definitely want reforms in the direct taxes compliances. That's one thing, and we already have the mechanism for this e-assessment. That was not, it did not take place at a fast pace last year, but we want to promote that. It is ultimately like GST. Our government thinks that it is the technology online system that alone can remove the this corruption in the whole system.
No. You had given
go for e-assessment,
you had given up on the DTC, but then you came back to the idea of the DTC. Sure. There is a report that's with the government on the DTC, but let me bring in Sunil Kant Munjal of the Hero Group. Mr. Munjal, thanks very much for joining us. Let me start by asking you what your key headlines, your key takeaways are from the kind of verdict that we've seen. I mean, the expectation was that it was going to be a return of the BJP and the NDA, but 353 for the NDA, 303 for the BJP. What do you take away from these numbers and from this mandate?
So first, I think this is absolutely astounding stuff that's going on in India. A party making a government by itself and coming back with not just making a government by itself, but getting even larger numbers. So this is historic in many, many ways. So I think full marks and compliments to the Prime Minister and Mr. Shah and the entire team that they put together. But I think the interesting message here is what people are thinking, how they are actually going about casting their vote. I think the young didn't really care too much about lack of jobs, etc. They are looking at what the potential of development is. So to go to your question, what do I think the priorities are? First, I think there's a lot of work the government had started, which needs to either get completed or get accelerated. Infrastructure development, new airports, ports, etc. But let me just take the big ticket items. First, I think the rural economy needs to be revived and built up. That's an absolute essential requirement for India right now, because most of India still lives in the rural areas, and that economy has suffered because of agriculture, or agriculture market and post-harvest value add. On both fronts, that part of the economy has suffered. That's an essential one. Second, the journey of the Make in India and ease of doing business. These are actually early days. There is still a lot of work to be done on both of them. And I think both are in real need of help and support, because that's what's going to hold up this machine of India in the coming decades as we move forward. So I also think at the same time there is a need for us to truly open up the opportunities to grow capacity in education and healthcare, at the same time ensuring these are high quality capacities in education and healthcare. The last one, and in some ways probably the most important one, is creating economic opportunities. Whether it's new startups or it's encouraging small to grow medium size, medium to become large size, and to encourage new large enterprises and current large ones to set up new ones. So I think that is an essential requirement, because in steady state we already know that new jobs do not get created. So it has to be an engine firing on multiple fronts at the same time. And all of these are real possibilities, because the process has already been started over the last some years. GST, for example, still needs streamlining. It needs to get to what the original GST plan was, which is to have more than 90% goods at one rate, and only have a few which are at a concessional and or a penal rate. So you genuinely turn India into a common market, and thereby build capacities not only for the domestic, but also for global markets. In a market, global market which is turning protective, we need to make a bigger effort to become a part of the global value chain. So I think there are some
you're right
real,
on that front.
Issues facing us.
Yes, there are a couple of buckets. That's right. a couple of buckets and some issues that need to be addressed. Let me, we will bring up our headlines in just about a minute because we've got viewers tuning in at 9 p.m. So we will give everyone a recap of what's transpired on this historic day. But Mohandas Pai, let me come back to you. You heard what Gopal Agarwal, BJP spokesperson, as well as the member of the economic cell had to say there. If I could ask you a specific question on the investment front, because that is an area of concern, and that has been an underperforming issue. Now, if we really needed to unlock the potential and really get the investment cycle moving again, the one big ticket idea that you would put on the table today?
Well, I think there are two sides, Shireen. The first is our interest rate structure should come down. Real interest rates are too high. Long-term money is not available in this country, so we have a problem. So we must improve liquidity in the marketplace so that money is available, and we must create the debt market for 15, 30-year loans. I would tell the Prime Minister, please talk to Prime Minister Abe and take $100 billion line of credit for 50 years, long-term loan from JICA from Japan, so that we can use the money to build infrastructure. We need one large infusion of long-term capital to build our infrastructure, reduce the cost of money, and make sure that we kickstart investment. Our investment is hampered by lack of adequate liquidity, lack of equity, very high interest rates, and very high costs. And of course, we went through all the IBC. So to me, this is the problem number one. We need long-term money.
Yes.
And to me, the only country that can give money is Japan. Japan has got enormous amount of money, $14 trillion of saving. We have a fantastic relationship with Prime Minister Abe. We must talk to them, government to government, $100 billion line of credit, $10 billion a year for 10 years for building infrastructure. The money will flow to India, and we can improve a lot of things. And our debt market. These are two things I would tell them to kickstart private investment.
Yeah. Okay, so look beyond the high-speed rail network and look at bringing in some serious liquidity in from Japan. That's the view there from Mohandas.